They say laughter can heal. But that day, her laughter destroyed something inside me. It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, but it was real. And that sound, it still echoes in my mind every time I start an engine. I never thought a simple laugh could change my life. It happened on what I thought would be one of the happiest days of my life. The sun was soft, the air felt new, and for once, I was proud of the small old car I had spent years saving for. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every dent told a story of struggle and progress. I had invited my fiancée Emma to see it. I thought she'd smile, maybe hug me, maybe say she was proud too. Instead, she laughed, not the kind of laugh you share out of joy, but the kind that slices right through your chest. She walked up with her two friends, heels clicking against the pavement, her perfume strong and expensive. I wiped my hands nervously on my jeans. "Hey babe," I said, smiling. "What do you think?" "She's old, but runs smooth." She stopped walking. Her eyes scanned the car, from the faded paint to the cracked dashboard visible through the window. Then she turned to her friends, covered her mouth, and said, "Oh my God, this is his car?" They burst out laughing. I felt my throat tighten. I tried to smile, to laugh it off, but I couldn't. My heart was pounding too loud. "You're joking, right?" she said, walking around it like it was some kind of museum piece. "You actually drive this thing? You could have told me before I posted our engagement pictures." Her words stung. I didn't care about the jokes, but the way she said our engagement pictures. As if my car was an embarrassment to her. As if I wasn't good enough. Her friends whispered something, giggled again. And she gave me that look, the one that said she wished she could pretend she didn't know me. I tried to defend myself, voice shaking. "It might be old, but it's reliable. I saved for." She cut me off with a wave. "You're missing the point. Image matters. I mean, you don't expect me to be seen in this, do you?" That sentence hit me harder than any insult could. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone I didn't recognize. The woman who once claimed she loved my heart, now looked disgusted by my car. By me. She turned to her friends, whispered something, and walked away laughing. The sound of her heels fading away hurt more than the laughter itself. I stood there for a long moment, my hand still resting on the car door. I could see my reflection in the glass, my tired eyes, my worn-out clothes, and the small smile that was trying to hide my heartbreak. That day, something inside me changed. Not instantly, quietly, slowly. I realized her laugh wasn't just about the car. It was about everything she thought I'd never be. It was about the man she believed wasn't enough. I started the engine, and as the car trembled to life, I whispered to myself, "One day, she see. Not the car, not the money, but the man." As I drove away, the wind felt colder, but my resolve burned hotter. That laugh? It wasn't just a joke. It was the start of a promise, and she had no idea one day that same laughter would freeze on her lips. They say love makes you blind. And looking back, I think that's true. Because when I first met Emma, I didn't see the warning signs. I only saw the light in her smile, not the shadow behind it. I met her on an ordinary afternoon. Nothing fancy, nothing planned, just fate doing what it does best, sneaking up when you least expect it. I was helping at a local coffee shop after work. My hands were covered in dust from the warehouse. My shirt smelled like machine oil, and honestly, I didn't look like the kind of guy anyone would notice, but she noticed me. She walked in wearing a simple white dress, holding a book in one hand and her phone in the other. Her smile, it was effortless, the kind that makes you forget how tired you are. When she dropped a few coins at the counter, I bent down to pick them up, and our hands brushed. We both laughed. That's how it began. We talked for hours that day about books, movies, dreams. She said she loved how real I was. I remember that word clearly, real. In a world full of filters and fancy suits. She said she wanted something genuine, and I believed her. Over the next few months we became inseparable. I'd pick her up after work, we'd drive to the lake, sit in my old car, and talk until the stars appeared. She never complained about the car then. She even said it was cozy. I thought I'd found the one. But love has a strange way of hiding the truth. It started small harmless comments here and there. One day she said, "You know, my friend's boyfriend just surprised her with a diamond bracelet. Isn't that sweet?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, that's nice," but deep down, I felt that quiet pressure, the kind that makes you want to prove you're enough. Then it became more frequent. "Oh, you still wear that old jacket? Maybe you should try those shoes with the brand logo. They look more professional." I just think appearances matter, babe. People judge, you know. At first, I laughed it off. I told myself she meant well. But sometimes her words lingered long after the conversation ended. Still, every time I looked at her, I saw the same girl from the coffee shop, the one who smiled at me when no one else did. That memory was enough to drown out the doubts. I worked harder. Picked up extra shifts. Saved more. Not because she asked me to, but because I wanted to make her proud. There were moments when she'd glance at other couples, the ones driving luxury cars, wearing designer clothes. She'd smile, but her eyes said something else. Something quiet. Something comparing. And every time I caught that look, I'd tell myself it's fine. She's with me for love, not things. But deep down I knew something was shifting. The girl who once loved sitting beside me in an old car now paused before getting in, checking if anyone was watching. The one who said, "I don't care about money," started talking more about our future, with bigger houses and better things. Still, I held on. Because when you love someone, you convince yourself they'll come around. You hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll see your worth beyond what's in your wallet. Sometimes I wonder, maybe I should have seen it coming. The little signs, the subtle sighs, the growing distance, but I didn't. Because when your heart is full of love, your eyes refuse to see the cracks. I thought she loved me. Not what I own. They say time reveals everything, and they were right. Because the woman who once held my hand through every storm soon became the one who made me question my own worth. After months of saving, I finally got a chance, a real one. A small tech startup I'd been helping part-time wanted me full-time. They couldn't pay much at first, but they promised growth, ownership, and something even more valuable, a future I could build myself. I was excited. I thought Emma would be proud. But when I told her, she smiled politely and said, "That's great, I guess. But are you sure it's stable? You know, my cousin's boyfriend just got promoted at the bank. He's already looking at condos." Her tone was calm, but the message was clear. "You're still not enough." I brushed it off. Maybe she was just being practical. Maybe she worried about us. But deep down, I felt that familiar sting, the kind that doesn't fade. I worked harder than ever. Days blurred into nights. I poured everything into that project, late hours, endless calls, sleepless planning. I kept thinking, just wait, Emma, one day you'll see. But as my dream grew, her patience shrank. It started with comparisons. "Why don't you dress more like Ryan?" she'd say. "He always looks so sharp." Or, "Liam just bought his girlfriend a new phone. He says it's the least he can do." Every sentence chipped away at the man I was trying to become. But I stayed quiet, hoping my success would silence her doubts. Then came the night that changed everything. We were out on a double date, Emma, me, and her two close friends with their partners. It was one of those rooftop places where everything sparkles. The city lights, the music, even the fake smiles. When we finished dinner, her friend suggested we all drive to a nearby lounge. That's when it happened. Everyone walked toward their cars, shiny, new, expensive. And there I was, standing beside my old sedan, the same one she'd laughed at months ago. I saw her hesitate. Her smile faltered. Then she whispered something to her friend. And they both laughed. Her friend's boyfriend offered her a ride, saying, "You can come with us if you want." She looked at me, just for a second, and said, "Yeah, maybe that's better. There's not much space in yours anyway." The words hit harder than a punch. Everyone heard. The laughter, the sideways glances. It felt like the world stopped for a second. I stood there, pretending it didn't matter. I even smiled and said, "Sure, go ahead. I'll meet you there." But as I watched her drive away, my smile broke. Inside, something shifted. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a cold realization. The woman I loved wasn't laughing with me anymore. She was laughing at me. That night, I drove alone. The city lights blurred through the windshield, but I barely saw them. Every word she'd ever said replayed in my head. Every "maybe someday." Every sigh, every comparison. I realized she didn't want a partner. She wanted a lifestyle, and I couldn't give her that. Not yet. But one day, I would, and she'd regret ever making me feel small. When I got home, I sat in silence, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't look defeated. I looked determined. That night I decided I would never let anyone make me feel small again. Sometimes losing someone you love doesn't destroy you. It awakens you. Because the night she walked away, something inside me didn't break. It began. After that humiliating night, I changed, not all at once, not dramatically but quietly. I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who didn't see it. Especially to her. Emma didn't notice at first. She still called, still texted, still acted like everything was fine. But something between us had shifted. A space that used to be filled with laughter was now heavy with silence. I started working late. My coworkers thought I was obsessed. Maybe I was. But it wasn't obsession. It was focus. Every time I felt that sting of her words, that memory of her laughter, I poured it into my work. At the startup, I stayed long after everyone left, reading, learning, experimenting. When others rested, I studied business models, investment pitches, leadership books. I didn't have money, connections, or privilege, but I had something stronger, pain with a purpose. Each long night became a quiet act of revenge. Not against her directly, but against a version of me she made me feel like small, insignificant, not enough. Meanwhile, Emma began to drift. Our conversations turned shorter, colder. When we met, she scrolled through her phone more than she looked at me. Her stories were always about other people, people who made it, people who lived big. I remember one evening, she mentioned how her friend's fiancé had bought her a new apartment. She looked at me, smiled faintly, and said, "Maybe someday you'll be able to do that too." It wasn't meant to encourage me. It was a reminder of where I wasn't. I wanted to tell her, "I'm trying." But what was the point? She wasn't looking for effort. She was looking for results. Weeks turned into months. I barely saw her anymore. When she did visit, she seemed distracted, always dressed up, always in a hurry. Then one day, she said, "We need to talk." Those words never mean anything good. We met at the same cafe where we first shared our dreams. Funny, isn't it? How life brings you full circle, only to show you how much has changed. She sat across from me, her eyes calm, her tone rehearsed. "I think we want different things," she said softly. "You're a great guy, but I can't wait forever. I need stability. I need to feel secure." I just stared at her. No anger, no begging, no tears, just silence. Inside. It hurt. Of course it did. But beneath that pain was something else, clarity. I realized she wasn't leaving me because I failed. She was leaving because she couldn't see who I was becoming. I nodded slowly. "If that's what you need," I said, "then I won't stop you." She looked surprised. Maybe she expected me to fight for her, to plead. But I didn't. I stood up, placed the engagement ring on the table, and said quietly, "I hope you find what you're looking for." And I walked away. That night I didn't cry. I went home, opened my laptop, and went back to work. Every click, every note, every plan felt like a step toward freedom. Because when someone breaks your heart, you have two choices. You can stay broken, or you can rebuild yourself stronger than ever. I chose the second. I started saving every penny. I stopped wasting time on things that didn't push me forward. While she was chasing luxury, I was building legacy. And slowly, very slowly, I began to rise. She thought walking away would destroy me. But she didn't know. She had just created the man I was meant to become. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would never beg for love again. I would let success speak louder than any apology she'd ever try to give. They say success is the best revenge. But I wasn't chasing revenge. I was chasing peace, and somehow, it led me right back to the person who once laughed at me. A year had passed since Emma walked away. 12 months that felt like both a lifetime and a single heartbeat. When she left, I didn't crumble. I didn't fall apart. Instead, I built. Quietly, patiently, relentlessly. I started from scratch, no favors, no shortcuts. Days turned into nights filled with endless planning. I read everything I could get my hands on. Business, strategy, leadership, anything that could sharpen my mind. While the world slept, I worked. And slowly, piece by piece, my hard work began to show. The startup that once barely paid my bills began to grow. We landed a major client. Then another. Investors started noticing. My ideas, the same ones people once laughed at, were now being presented in boardrooms. I still remember the day my CEO called me in and said, "You've earned this. I'm making you partner." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. All those nights alone, all those sacrifices, all that pain, it finally meant something. But the biggest change wasn't the title or the money. It was me. I moved into a small but beautiful apartment overlooking the city. I got myself a new car, sleek, black, powerful. Not to show off, but because it reminded me of how far I'd come. The same hands that once fixed a broken mirror on an old car now signed business contracts worth more than I'd ever dreamed of. But deep down, I stayed the same. Still humble. Still grounded. Still the same man who once believed love was enough. Only now, I understood something important. You can't make people see your worth. You can only show it, silently. There were moments late at night when I'd think of her. Not with anger, but with clarity. I'd remember her laughter. The way she rolled her eyes at my dreams, the way she said, "Maybe someday." And I'd smile, not out of bitterness, but gratitude. Because if she hadn't broken me, I might never have found the strength to rebuild. I realized that life has a strange way of using pain to prepare you for purpose. Her rejection wasn't my ending, it was my beginning. One evening I was driving home after a long meeting. The city lights flickered through the windshield, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I stopped at a red light and looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Sharp suit, calm eyes, a quiet confidence I never had before. It hit me then. I had become everything she once thought I couldn't be. But I didn't feel like proving anything. Revenge wasn't on my mind. Only peace. Still, a small voice inside me whispered, "One day, she see. And fate has a strange sense of timing. A week later, I received an invitation to a corporate event, a business gala for young entrepreneurs. It was the biggest night of my career, a chance to meet investors, build partnerships, and share my story. As I walked into that grand hall, lights flashing, cameras rolling, I felt proud, but calm. I was no longer the man desperate to be noticed. I was the man no one could ignore. The event was buzzing with music and chatter when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Soft, elegant, unmistakable. My heart paused. I turned slowly. And there she was. Emma. Her eyes widened, her smile faded. And for a second, just a second, she looked exactly the way I once did. Speechless, I didn't say a word. Not yet, because this time I didn't need to chase her, explain myself, or prove anything. The universe had already done that for me. And as she stood there, frozen in disbelief, I thought to myself, this isn't revenge. This is justice with grace. And then, fate brought her back into my life. Fate has a funny way of bringing people back into your life. Not to hurt you, but to show you how much you've changed. And that night, when I saw her again, I finally understood what closure truly felt like. It happened almost a year after everything ended. By then, my life had taken a turn I never expected. The small startup I once struggled with had grown into something real, solid, respected. We had investors, new offices, even a small feature in a business magazine. When I got the invitation to a networking gala, the kind where everyone dresses sharp and talks success, I didn't think much of it. It was just another event, another room filled with smiles that didn't always mean what they showed. What I didn't know was that she'd be there. The night of the gala, I stepped into my new car, a sleek black limo that my company had arranged for the occasion. As the driver opened the door for me, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the tinted glass. Tailored suit, calm eyes, quiet confidence. I didn't recognize the man staring back, but I liked him. The venue was stunning, chandeliers, champagne glasses, music that whispered luxury. I walked in slowly, shaking hands, greeting familiar faces. People nodded, smiled, congratulated me. And then, I saw her. Emma. She was standing by the bar with two of her friends, the same ones who once laughed at my old car. She looked radiant, dressed to impress, laughing just like she always did. But when her eyes found mine, everything changed. The laughter stopped, the smile froze. Her glass trembled slightly in her hand. For a moment, she didn't move, just stared, trying to process what she was seeing. I could see it in her eyes. Disbelief, confusion, maybe even a hint of regret. I walked toward her slowly, calm and collected. The sound of my footsteps echoed louder than the music in my ears. Her friends noticed me first, their expressions shifting from curiosity to surprise. One of them whispered, "Isn't that?" Emma didn't answer. She just watched me, almost breathless. "Emma," I said softly, with a polite smile. "It's been a while." She blinked, still trying to regain her composure. "Oh, wow, I didn't expect to see you here." Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it behind a confident tone. I smiled. "Yeah, life's full of surprises, isn't it?" Her friends exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. They excused themselves, leaving us alone. For a few seconds, there was silence, the kind that feels heavy, like the air itself is waiting for something. "You look different," she said finally. "Successful." "I've been working hard," I replied. "Trying to build something meaningful." She nodded, eyes darting to my suit, my watch, the guests greeting me. "I can see that." There was a faint smile on her face, but it wasn't joy. It was realization. I could tell she was remembering the past, the laughter, the words, the moments she thought didn't matter. And now, standing in front of me, those same moments weighed on her shoulders like stone. People around us began to notice. A few whispered my name, mentioned my company. I saw her glance around nervously, realizing who I had become, not the man with the old car, but the man everyone wanted to talk to. I leaned in slightly and said, "Funny how life works, huh? Back then, my car embarrassed you. But that old car drove me to every dream I ever had." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just silence. I smiled politely and added, "Anyway, it's good to see you. I hope life's treating you well." And with that, I turned and walked away, calm, collected, untouched. As I left her standing there, I didn't feel revenge. I felt release. Because real power isn't about proving someone wrong. It's about becoming everything they said you couldn't be, and walking away with grace. That night, I didn't just see her again. I saw how far I'd come. And for the first time in a long time, I finally felt free. Some truths don't need to be shouted to be heard. Sometimes, silence and success speak louder than any words ever could. That night, she finally heard both. After the gala, I thought it was over. I had seen her, spoken to her, and walked away. That should have been enough, but the universe had one last scene left for us. 2 days later, she reached out, a short message on social media. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the one that remembered the laughter, the humiliation, the pain, wanted closure. So I agreed to meet her. We met at a quiet rooftop cafe in the heart of the city. The same city where she once walked past me without pride. Now, she waited nervously for me to arrive. When I walked in, she stood up immediately. "You came," she said softly. I nodded, calm. "You asked me to." She smiled, but it was different this time. Not confident, not proud, just uncertain. We sat down, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then she took a deep breath and said, "You look amazing. You've really changed." I smiled faintly. I guess life has a way of changing us all. She looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup. "I've been thinking about that night," she said. "The gala, and before that too." Her voice trembled. "I was young, stupid. I said things I didn't mean. I didn't realize how much they hurt you." I listened quietly, not interrupting. She went on, "I've been following your journey, your company, your interviews. I'm proud of you, really." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "You always had potential. I just didn't see it then." Her words floated between us, part apology, part regret, and maybe a trace of something else. I leaned back, studying her carefully. She looked almost the same, yet completely different. The same face, but the sparkle in her eyes was gone, replaced by something softer, sadder. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "It takes courage to admit mistakes." She smiled faintly, a sigh of relief escaping her lips. "Thank you. I just hope maybe we could start over as friends, or..." I shook my head gently. "Emma," I interrupted, "I'm not angry anymore. You don't need to fix the past. It already taught me everything I needed to know." Her smile faded. "What do you mean?" I looked straight into her eyes and said, "Do you remember that day? The one where you laughed at my old car?" She blinked, clearly uncomfortable. "That was a long time ago." "I didn't mean to," I stopped her with a calm voice. "You laughed at me, Emma, not at the car. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, and that feeling stayed with me for years." She swallowed hard, looking away. "I know, I was wrong. I've regretted it ever since." I nodded slowly. "I'm sure you have. But you know what's funny? That old car. It took me everywhere I needed to go. It drove me to every late-night meeting, every pitch, every opportunity that made me who I am today." Her eyes met mine again, and this time they were filled with tears. I smiled. Not cruelly, but gently, with truth. "You laughed at my car," I said softly, "but the man driving it was worth more than you ever saw." For a moment, she didn't move. No words, no excuses. Just silence. And in that silence, I felt something lift off my chest. Not victory, but peace. She finally understood. Not because I told her, but because life had shown her. I stood up, placed a few bills on the table and said, "Take care of yourself, Emma." As I walked away, I didn't look back. Not once. Because some goodbyes don't need closure. They just need strength. Sometimes Life doesn't give you revenge, it gives you growth. And when you rise above the people who once looked down on you, that's not payback, that's justice. The quiet kind that speaks without words. They say silence is powerful, and that night, I learned why. Because sometimes, the loudest revenge is walking away without a word. When I left that rooftop cafe, I didn't look back. The city lights shimmered around me, and the cool night breeze brushed past my face. It felt like freedom. For the first time in years, my heart wasn't heavy. It was light, peaceful, still. I had said everything I needed to say. And what I didn't say, she heard anyway. Emma stayed behind, frozen in silence. I could almost picture her sitting there, staring at the empty chair in front of her, realizing the weight of what she'd lost. Not the money, not the success, but the man who once loved her without conditions. I didn't need to see her face to know the truth. Regret doesn't speak. It lingers. As I walked toward my car, I remembered the journey that brought me there. The laughter that once humiliated me. The heartbreak that almost broke me. The long nights of working alone, believing in myself when no one else did. Every pain had a purpose. Every rejection had direction. And every tear I'd shed had watered the seed of the man I had become. I leaned against my car door, no longer the old one she once mocked, but the symbol of everything I'd built from the ground up. And I smiled, not out of pride, but gratitude. Because her betrayal didn't destroy me, it revealed me. It showed me what I was capable of when I stopped trying to prove myself to others and started believing in myself. People think revenge means proving someone wrong. But I learned that true revenge isn't about showing them your success. It's about realizing you no longer care whether they see it or not. The man she once pitied had become the man she'd never reach again. And that was enough. I drove through the city that night, past the streets where we used to walk together, past the cafes where we shared dreams that never came true. But this time, I didn't feel sadness. I felt gratitude, because every wrong turn had led me exactly where I needed to be. Somewhere deep inside, I wished her well. Because anger fades, but lessons last forever. And she was my greatest lesson, a reminder that love without respect is just illusion. And that no one should ever have to shrink to fit someone else's expectations. As I stopped at a red light, I glanced at the couple crossing the street, young, holding hands, laughing without fear of judgment. It made me smile. Because once upon a time, that was me. And maybe, in another life, Emma and I could have been that. But in this one, our story had already served its purpose. I parked by the lake, the same lake where we used to sit and dream. The moonlight danced on the water, and I whispered quietly, "Thank you, Emma, for teaching me what real love isn't." Then I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing anything. Not love, not validation, not revenge. I was just content. Life has a way of testing us. Sometimes, it strips away what we think we need, just to remind us of what we truly deserve. People will doubt you, mock you, even walk away from you when you have nothing. But that's okay. Because one day, your silence will speak louder than their laughter. I learned that you don't have to shout your worth. You just have to live it. And when you finally rise, don't rise to prove them wrong. Rise to prove yourself right. Never judge someone by what they have today. You might just be laughing at your own missed blessing. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories of love, betrayal, and redemption. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in his place? Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming the person they said you could never be.